And I was raised in Springfield, Delaware County.
Yay, me too.
And I've done a lot of things with my life. I had a long-term relationship with a man named Norman Mailer. Anybody know his name?
Yes.
He was wrote lots of books, Pulitzer Prize. And the thing he valued most in life was experience. And he felt it was godlike. More than money, more than beauty. Maybe health trumped it, but he believed in experience. And I did too before I met him. I'm an experience junkie. So what I did with my life in capsules was I was an art teacher, and then I was an airline stewardess for Pan Am, and then I was a supermodel, but I never felt like one. And then I was an actress, and I was in Stepford Wives, and then I was a writer and wrote 6 books, and then I became a lecturer, which I'm doing now, and I review movies, and I review books, and many mornings I wake up feeling like a failure. How many of you feel like have the morning blues? I think so. So I'm here to try to make you feel a bit happier, and getting out of the bed in the beginning is sometimes a problem for me. I'm telling you my tricks. First of all, because the mind in the morning, my mind it goes to why didn't I should've, would've, could've, I should have done that, and all the past comes forward, and you know the past is death. We don't want to go there. In the morning, the mind is there, so what do? Turn on the TV. It doesn't matter what it is, just to shut off my mind. And then I work out in bed. How many of you work out in bed? You should do that. You do. Good. You just move your legs, kicks, up to get the circulation going. Just a little bit, 3 times, 4 times. And then I'm out of bed and I'm on with the day and all the mundacities is that a word? Mundane things I have to do. I worked my way through college. When I was in 7th grade, my father was my hero. You'll see him up here. There he is in this one, family, in the middle. Herbert Emil Wagner, and I adored him. His great uncle was General Lou Wagner, who led the Battle of Bull Run and was wounded and started in Cheltenham, Camp Cheltenham, for the Negroes and the whites in the Civil War, when on the Union side did not get along. There was racism. So General Lou formed Camp Cheltenham, I think that was the name, to bring harmony. He was a great, great man. He might have even started the Union League, and my father emulated him and wanted to be a great man. My father had 3 jobs. He worked in the bank, and he was known as a man who never made a mistake. My mother was a farmer from Shoemakersville, PA. Anybody know that, Shoemakersville? She was Pennsylvania Dutch, and she thought sex was a sin. And I was raised very strictly. And when I was in grade school, I was so skinny, the boys would call me Toothpick. And my maiden name was Wagner. And I'd run up a tree, and they'd say, waggy, waggy, wagtail, because I walked with a wiggle. And I never felt pretty as a child. My sister was the beauty, but she was never nice to me. She was the maid queen and 4 years older. But that's the past. So my father was my hero, and when I was in 7th grade, he came down with a twitch, a mysterious twitch. They didn't know what it was. So we went to Florida, and they gave him shock treatments he never wanted against his will. And I would try to teach him to speak after each series of shock treatments. Anybody know people with shock treatments? Sometimes they work for people. They were terribly inappropriate to my father. You'll find out why later. So while I was in Florida, Chris wanted me to tell you, we lived in Bradenton. Anyone know Bradenton, Florida? This was a...
I have a...
You do?
Son-in-law lives there.
Really?
Yeah.
Does he like it?
Yeah, he likes it. Yeah.
It's a great town, isn't it?
Yeah, very nice.
Please speak up anytime you want. I want this to be interactive. So we went to Florida, and Chris wanted me to mention, I don't remember the year it was, but the buses, the blacks had to sit in the back, and the whites were in the front, and I would go and sit with the blacks. And I would walk the it was 7th grade, I'd walk the train tracks, and we'd look for snakes. My one friend, and it was all jungle, and there were chameleons in the toilet, and it was quite savage, actually, then, or rough. So I come back, and in 9th grade, my father had to quit all his jobs. He had 3 jobs because he wanted to be a success. He couldn't work because of his twitch. So a doctor at the Lankenau, he said, well, they have a new operation they're trying. We wanted to make an experiment and give him a lobotomy. So they gave him a lobotomy, and during the operation they discovered he had Parkinson's disease, and they apologized for their mistake. So the man I loved became a mistake, and I loved him just the way he was. And I called him my favorite daddy. And my whole life has quite simply been dedicated to trying to accomplish what he could not. So that's why I became an accomplishment junkie. He would twitch and grunt and climb up the stairs like an ape. When we ate, food would go into the walls, and he smelled. He had eczema. I don't know if any of you saw Michael Fox this past Sunday, and how he was twitching, and that's the way, it's horrible. And that's how my father was. And he said, a Parkinson's won't kill you, but what did he say? I won't die. I don't hear this expression from him, but it will destroy you. My father died of a heart attack, not Parkinson's. He tried suicide once, and he couldn't even do that. But in any event, I didn't want to be home to watch him. So I became a runner. And that's why in high school, I'm presently going to be honored in the Hall of Fame at Springfield High with 5 other people. And I did all these things. Well, they don't know why I did all those things. You know why. And I wrote a speech because I didn't want to be home. I didn't want to look at him. If you watch that poor Michael Fox on Sunday, they had short, if you recall, very snippets of his twitching, because you can't bear to watch it. It's so awful. So I couldn't watch the man I loved suffer like this. So I joined everything in high school. I was in the Future Farmers of America as well as the Future Teachers, all because I didn't want to go home. But that's high school. So now I'll be honored May 26th. You're all invited, 10:30 a.m. I wouldn't go. Once you get up then, I get up at 10, but I have to go. So then I got an art scholarship from Springfield, and I taught art when I graduated. I went to Penn State, and I was up for Miss Penn State, and then there were 20,000 students in the gymnasium.
Where did you live in Springfield?
Where?
Yeah.
718 Hilltop Road, and don't tell me why I remember that. I do.
Hilltop. I lived on 420.
You're from Springfield?
Yes.
How wonderful. Delaware County.
Huh?
Delaware County.
Yes.
Isn't it a small world?
Yes.
Okay. Carol, you and I have a lot in common.
I was right between the Dairy Cottage and Kovacs Funeral Home. House at Cape Cod that sits up on the hill.
Now that I don't remember. I'll tell you, I can't even find Springfield today driving, so the memory is a little quasi
I
today.
remember Springfield caught fire, except for the arch.
Really?
In the high school, the girl set it on fire, yeah.
Oh my. You're a wealth of
I went to
information.
Mark.
Yeah. So anyway, I was up for the Queen. There I am in front of 20,000 students, and there are 5 competitors. And they asked me, what is the hardest thing for you to have overcome in your life? And I said, my father's lobotomy. And there was silence, and moments later I lost, and I felt like a loser, and that I had disappointed my father. People don't like the word lobotomy. Was working on my, I'm supposed to say somebody's reading about me. What they think I'm getting an award for my achievements in arts. And someone actually from, I'll leave the newspaper out, but she's going to introduce me, and she wanted to help me write it. And she took all of my father out, and I wanted to throw up. I thought, no, I didn't want to write a resume. I had to not achieve things because I woke up and wanted to be a success. I don't think most of our people who are famous or successful do that. My reason was my father, and maybe he still is. But I can't retire. Retirement to me is a dirty word. I mean, I could be retired now, but I'm so grateful you asked me to talk to you. It's boring. I can't be bored. And I have to accomplish. So there I was in college, and I graduated in 3 years because I wanted to buy a Ford Falcon convertible. Who remembers those? It was black interior. It was maroon. Oh, it was gorgeous. So then I taught in Lower Marion for 3 months, and I didn't like that because they were all rich. They had limousines, and they had no love from their parents. I had a hole in my art room floor they never fixed, but the band had new uniforms, so their values were, as far as I'm concerned, questionable. But I went back to Springfield High and taught there a year. And then I had to sit, I was at home, in college, the first man I fell in love with, quote unquote, was named Dick Hoke. He was later became a coach for the Steelers. He was an All-American at Penn State. And he went on to coach for the Steelers. He won 5, not the head coach, but one of those others. He won 5 Super Bowls. And, he studied history. And in those days, I have to tell you, I thought history was boring. I'm quite ashamed of the way I used to think. Now, I wake up to CNN or MSNBC, and I have a hard time finding shows more exciting than what's going on in Ukraine or the lawsuits against Trump. I like to follow that stuff. But at least I care. I didn't care when I was growing up. Vietnam didn't exist for me. I was in the beaches of Saint-Tropez, strutting around, having a good time. So that whole era just, I'm quite ashamed I was not marching. Now, recently I marched. I have a photo of myself when Trump came to Philadelphia. I went down and marched with friends, and now I'm quoting him. Do you remember when they wanted to grab the pipeline? I said, you can't grab my pussy or my pipeline, Donald Trump, because he said that. You can grab a woman by the vagina. Yeah. So I had it on the side, and I marched with it, because I do believe that. And so where was I now? So I'm home, and I'm seeing my father twitching in bed, and in the chair or whatever, and I thought, I have to get away from here. Who remembers what happened in 1963? 63. Kennedy died, right. His assassination, and I watched that, and I drew the horses drawing his coffin through the streets, and it was so sad. I thought, I have to get out of here. If I were a guy, I would have joined the Marines, but I wasn't, so I thought, I'm going to fly away from here. And I went to apply to TWA for a stewardess. Now, the biggest thing you'll hear about my story is my perseverance, which each one of you have, or you wouldn't be here. And don't let anyone ever shame you for your age, but you're proud of it, like Biden was proud of it. We have wisdom that they don't have, the young ones. Okay?
It's all the cool bands.
Right. So I thought I'm going to fly away. So I went to TWA, but guess what? They said, we don't want you. But you know what? I said, I'm sorry, I don't hear you. I'm going to go somewhere else. So I went to Pan Am. and they hired me. And all I had was my French from high school, and it worked. So I flew for 2 years, or 3, I think 2, and I managed to take my mother around the world in 1965, which was really wonderful. And because I felt I had abandoned her, which I had, to my father. And so I flew from New York. Where is the woman? Her mother was a stewardess who was here for Pan Am. I flew from New York to Bangkok. I first went to London, then Paris, then Rome, then Beirut, then New Delhi, then Bangkok. When my mother, I didn't go to Hong Kong, but when we went around the world, we went to Hong Kong and Tokyo and Hawaii. Now, a separate lecture, if you want to have me back ever, I would talk detailed about being a Pan Am stewardess, which they seem to like. But I will say one thing now, that when Mother and I were in Tokyo, we were able to see the wonderful Imperial Palace. Who remembers that? The Imperial Hotel. There you go. Well, it withstood the earthquake of, 1926 or something, but it could not withstand the, what's the word? Avarice of the Japanese, because they tore it down and built a big hotel. But my mother and I got to go into it when it was still there, and the basement were snake-like because of the earthquake. They curved around, and they would have weddings there, and they honored it. And it's so sad that they tore it down. But I'll skip up there. Every city I have a story, but that's the stewardess part. So then I forgot to tell you I got airsick. So my first flight was to Bermuda, and I ended up on the there. Who's been to Bermuda? Good. Yeah. Anyone want to mention anything about it? Any memories? What?
Warm, delightful. I hate to get up in the morning. It's one of these wonderful things to do, like a relax, slip around, wonderful place to go.
Pink, right? Yeah. It's wonderful. So, but I spent the landing, which was spiral, in the bathroom throwing up, thinking I'd rather be here than in Philadelphia, meaning my father, yeah. And I threw up for 2 years, and I lost so much weight. Where is the picture of New York Magazine? Thank you, Kathy. She'll show you the cover. It's one of these. I weighed 108. Where did we put it? We were going to have her scotch tape.
Oh, that one?
Yeah. Yeah, there. And so people would say, "Oh, you have such pretty eyes, passengers. You should model." And
You should what?
model. I should be a model. So I thought, well, I'll try it for 2 months, and if I don't get hired, I'll go back to flying. And I got a medical leave of absence because I was throwing up so much. They paid me to go and try to be a model.
Why did you keep throwing up?
I can't hear why.
Why did you keep throwing up?
I had air sickness.
Lasted for 2 years?
I took Dramamine and Bentadine, I think they had, and I was just, at first I loved it, then I was miserable. So I went to, I was in Paris and trying to be a model, and I went to a woman named Dorian Lee. I don't know, does anybody remember Susie Parker, the model, the beautiful model? No, it was her sister. And she hired me right away. And I said, I'll give this 2 months. And I lived in a hotel which had, who knows what a WC is? A toilet, right. It had a WC down the hall, and I had to walk upstairs, and then I had to lie about my height because I'm 5'6", and I would say 5'8". You always do that, and wear high shoes and walk around the cobblestones of Paris and try to get hired. And sure enough, in 2 months, I got a booking with French Vogue, which is like with the best photographer really in the world. His name is Guy Bourdin. And the pictures are up there. I think you could probably figure which one's out. They're black and white. And I don't know if you know where they are. Chris, probably not. But So I was booked for the Italian collections, and it was a great honor. But I didn't like Paris. I still don't like Paris. I said I wanted a hamburger, a real one, and I didn't like the pretense, and I didn't like the ridicule about my bad. I spoke what's called caniche française, which means who knows what caniche is in French? Dog. It's French for the dogs. So they would laugh at me when I try, and I was not around the people from the left bank so much, but later I end up being engaged to somebody whose mother lived in Neuilly, who knows Neuilly, the right bank, very snobbish area. I didn't like that. I didn't like Faubourg Saint-Honoré, all the shops. I didn't like the worshipping clothing, I detest. Worshipping alcohol, I detest. Going to a museum after worshipping the past, I detest. They say, oh, museums, give me a break. America, let's live in the now. We're in the now here. Our cheeseburgers. They took our McDonald's and put it on the Champs-Élysées, which is like the snobbish street. They call it Mickey D, let's go to Mickey D's, and then they took, who remembers the Villager shirt with the button-down collars? You remember those?
What?
The Villager, they were button-down, they copied them, but they did them better, because they're really talented. So they would copy ours and charge a fortune and make it better. Now, I don't know if the McDonald's is better, but they rave about Mickey D. They got it from us. Meanwhile, they don't really like us that much, I gotta tell you. They're not real high on Americans. At least if you try to speak French and you're American, they'll be nice to your face and stab you on the back. That's my experience. Anyway, so I went back to New York, and I went to, who remembers Eileen Ford, the agency? Have you ever heard of her? Yeah. Well, I went to her and she looked at my pictures, which essentially were a coup. I had done something really fabulous. She said, lovely darling, why didn't you stay there? Well, that's not what I wanted to hear. She hired me, and 2 months later she fired me. But you don't give up, perseverance. So I went to a competitor named Stewart, and she hired me, and I became a supermodel, which is all these pictures you see around as proof. I never felt like a supermodel. I always felt inferior. I've had low self-esteem all my life until 1980, and I'll explain why. So later. So I enjoy talking to you. I enjoy your listening. I don't know if I'm boring you or whatever, but to have you pay attention to me is such an honor and privilege. So where was I? Now I'm. Do you remember where I was?
Self-esteem.
Yeah, but what city? I was in New York modeling, said model. Then I met a man named Carole Mallory, and he was an artist, and I was into the art world, and he did the mural in the trade towers. Remember, if anyone was there, I never saw it, of the Andrea Doria, and of course it's no longer there. So he worked with mercury, kinetic, things that moved. Like those very cheap lamps, but very beautiful. His was jet engine. It's called Aerochlor and mercury, and it would flow through the oil and almost have an orgasm of bubbles. So it was very sensual and very beautiful. And a lot of collectors bought his work. Even a man called Mortimer Sackler. Maybe you remember him. Yes, you do. He was Purdue Pharma, who created OxyContin. And they were famous art collectors while they were meanwhile killing people with OxyContin. A lot of people go to the art world to enhance their reputation. But the real interest of the Sacklers was money and inventing OxyContin and lying about the fact that it can kill you if you don't take it correctly. Now, it can be prescribed correctly, but it's a very dangerous drug. So my ex-husband had a lot of rich collectors, and I guess I better say it now. We had them to dinner to impress them. And I'm a recovering alcoholic. I haven't had a drink for 43 years. And thank you. And that's why my self-esteem was always so low.
Keep coming back, it works with
That's right. You got it. You've been there.
Been there, done that.
Been there, done that. So when the rich collectors would come to the home, I worshiped wine, everything. I had to Windex the wine glasses. Just the mere thought of putting Windex where wine is, I mean, my values were horrible because I wanted to be chic, elegant, hot, sophisticated, everything that alcohol represents, which is all a lie. So today I try very hard to carry the other message. But when I modeled Gordon's Gin, remember the ad, if you do it under the umbrella, it was on the buses with that Bushmills liquor, whiskey, they were a client. Anyway, I loathe the symbolism of alcohol. I do not object to people drinking. I do not blame alcohol for alcoholism. It's the person who takes the drink and their thinking that is the problem. But the idealization, the glorification of it in society is totally inappropriate. Kathy, I'm talking to you. I love you. Did she leave? Oh, I'm sorry. So, Kathy is a normal drinker. They do exist. Her boyfriend, Chris, is not a normal drinker. And they're together and they work it out, and that's wonderful. Where was I? So I'm married to Ron Mallory now. We would go places, jet setting, whatever. One day we were in Saint-Tropez and I was coming out of the beach, water, and a man, my ex-husband, was talking to a rather fat man, and he said, "Carole, I want you to meet Sam Spiegel." Who remembers Sam Spiegel? Yes, you do. What did he produce?
I don't know.
Yes, you do. African Queen, Bridge on the River Kwai, on the waterfront. Big producer. Very overweight. So Carole, this is Sam Spiegel. Now in Saint-Tropez, you didn't look at the beautiful women or the handsome men. You looked at the yachts in the harbor and tried to figure out who owned them. That was the game. And then, of course, how to get on them. So I said to Sam, "We love your yacht. It's called the Melanie." He said, "Well, do you want to come for a cruise tomorrow? We're leaving at 6 to go to Corsica." Absolutely. So there we were on, it's called the Melanie, going to Corsica. The boat in itself, you can Google it, they used in World War II to help get the soldiers back from France. It's very historical. So now we're going to Corsica, and we don't know why. We're to meet a mystery guest. So what did we care? The first stop was at Porto Cervo. Who knows Porto Cervo? You've heard of it. Anyway, it's very rich. So we drop anchor, and a man comes on board and puts out his hand. He's handsome, and I'm Kirk Douglas. I said, "Oh, hello." And he was as nice as can be, and he showed us the boat. Then we went off to Portofino, and there we met David Niven. Now, David Niven was not the ebullient man. Any movies you can remember David Niven in? What?
Oh, Justin, I just saw him on TV.
You did
He
on
was an
what?
actor, that's all I know.
Yeah, that's enough.
That's all I know.
What movies do you remember Kirk Douglas in? Spartacus. Spartacus is the best.
That's fun.
So, now, about David Niven's wife, her name was Joris, and she was Swedish. And he had come down with, what is it called, that debilitating disease. It was very sad. What?
Malaria.
No, Joseph Heller had it as well. I'll think of it 3 minutes from now. But she helped him, and she was wonderful, and it was great meeting him. Then we went on to Corsica, and now we were meeting our mystery guest. And do you remember the Super 8? We had a Super 8, so we were filming a person coming, and my ex-husband are down at the portal looking, and who's coming in a little boat, maybe 30 feet? A man and a woman and a little boy. It's Princess Grace and Prince Rainier and Albert. So they come on board, and Sam starts to yell. Now, I've learned in my travels, you're hearing a lot of name dropping here. People with money and fame don't necessarily have self-esteem, and I certainly didn't either. So Sam starts to yell, and Grace didn't like that. Sam said, and the reason he was yelling, he didn't know what's called protocol. Who knows protocol? You 2, 3, 4. You will know what it is. He did not know how to seat 8 people with royalty. There's a way to do it. He didn't know it. So Prince Rainier said, don't worry, Sam, I'll sit next to Carole. That's how I got Prince Rainier by my side. And what do you say to a prince? Oh my God, I thought, what am I going to do? So I said, what sign are you? Like the dumbest question in the world. Huh?
How's the palace?
So he said, I'm a Gemini. I said, I'm a Capricorn, and not only am I a Capricorn, but I'm from Philadelphia. Grace says, well, so am I. And I said, and I taught school in Lower Marion. She said, good for you. And then she said, Sam, I'm glad to see you have some class on your boat instead of that Hollywood riffraff. She did not like Hollywood or the people in it. Now the whole reason we made this, what's the word, voyage, was to get Princess Grace to be a star of the book Nicholas and Alexandra. Anybody remember the book, the name? They made a movie finally, but she wouldn't do it. So after lunch, we went on the top deck, and now I'm drinking. These are my drinking days, and they're all drinking. So I said, I did push-ups at her feet with Albert, and I said, Je suis mal élevée. Anybody know what that means, possibly? Anybody speak bad French like me? It means I'm badly raised. And I was meaning from the floor because I fell doing push-ups. And she laughed because in French it's pertaining to heritage. If somebody's not from a good family, you say they're je suis mal élevée. They're peons, they're peasants. So, but I was pertaining to the push-up on the floor. So she thought it was funny and laughed. And I felt like I had a sister I never had. I loved her dearly. She died, Chris, are you going to read that letter that you usually do for us?
Sure.
She died, I think, about 86. I had to have help to do it, a girlfriend who's French. I wrote Prince Rainier, and he wrote me back. And Chris is going to read you the letter that he wrote.
This was written on March 17th, 1983. Dear Mrs. St. Patrick's Day, you're right. Dear Mrs. Mallory, I am certainly very appreciative of your kind letter of March the 5th, in which you recall the very enjoyable times we all had aboard Mr. Spiegel's yacht several years ago. Let me express my sincere thanks to you for your kind prayers and for your comforting words of sympathy on the sad occasion of my beloved wife's death. My children join in expressing our heartfelt gratitude. Most sincerely, Prince Rainier.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. So, it was really sad because I've been going to AA a long time, but I couldn't say in AA that I had known Princess Grace or that she had died because you don't use proper names, and I felt like I was a wine bottle with a cork stuck in it, and because I couldn't share myself, but that was only within me because I shouldn't have cared what they thought, and I should have just said it. So now I say it when I feel like it, but I know I can say it here with all of you because we don't have those restrictions. So after that, my marriage with Ron was getting a bit on the rocks, and we were at a party Diane Furstenberg invited us to. At a hippopotamus, a discotheque, and a man came up and extended his hand. He said, I'm Claude Picasso, do you want to dance? Well, we all heard the name Picasso, and my ex-husband's pushing me like, I'm like, go dance, you know. Great, so we danced, and I fell in love on the dance floor with Pablo Picasso's son. He's somewhere up here. I gave them the men I was with numbers. I don't know where the men I loved are over there. He's the number 5 on the top left. Very handsome. I'm happy to say today he has plugs and that this is my hair. He has $1 million, I don't, but this is my hair, okay? So we fell in love, and that went on probably for 9 years. He was married. After the dance, when he went back to his wife, I went back to my husband. And then my husband and I divorced. 6 months later, I I ran into Claude on the way to acting school, and I said, always having identity problems. Hi, it's Mrs. Ronald Mallory. Well, I wasn't Mrs. I was divorced. And then I said, but I got divorced. He said, so did I. We went to have dinner, and he came to my home the next night with a dozen daisies and moved in that night, never left. He had no money. He was married. His wife was divorcing him. And I supported him for about 3-4 years and was madly in love with him. And then one day he went to France without asking me, and right after we met, and I thought, I am not your hotel. So I started dating, and I dated a man named Mike Nichols. Who remembers him? Mike Nichols, you remember him. Give me some movies, shout them out. Yeah, do you know a movie Mike did? The Graduate is probably the most.
Next year?
What?
Same time next year?
I don't know about that. I don't know them all either, but he was a wonderful man. Now, there was a man who, forget my ego, listened to me when I talk. When you're a model, men don't listen to you. They look at you, and then they want you to shut up. So, Mike Nichols was the other way. He made me feel wonderful, cared about. So after about 4 dinners, he said, a friend of mine is having a birthday party. Would you like to come? It's at El Morocco. Her name is Jacqueline Onassis. I thought, what? I have to get a dress. Of course I'll go. So I went and I got a dress, and this was thrilling. And the night he pulled up with his limousine to go to the birthday anniversary of Jacqueline Onassis, I think it was the 2nd. Who shows up with Claude Picasso at the door? I said, well, I'm not engaged to you. We're not engaged. You know, I'm not staying home. So I went, and he stayed in the bedroom and read 100 Years of Solitude or whatever by, I forget his name too. So we later made up, and I went to the anniversary, and Grace, I get them mixed up. Jacqueline Kennedy was gracious, kind. Her picture's over there if you want to show it, Chris, if you want to, and I'm in the picture just from Life magazine. The one with the Cosmo cover there. You see on the left, Kathy? The top left is Jacqueline, and then I'm next to her. The picture of me, just show it to them. I know what it. Anyway, so she was wonderful. She was sincere because she looked you in the eyes when she said hello. She shook my hand. She was very tall, taller than what I've read. I don't know what. She seemed like a giant, and she kissed Mike on the cheek, and I thought they had something going, and I would have been happy about it because how she suffered so much. So then, then Picasso dies in April 8th, I think, 1973, and in the graveyard, Francois Gillot's mother wouldn't go. Oh, before this, his mother, Francois Gillot, gave me 3 pieces of Picasso jewelry to thank me for taking care of her son. I'm still living off that money. She didn't give me any money to help support him. I did all that, but she showed the jewelry was her gesture. So when Picasso died, we went to the place called the Chateau de Vauvenargues. Who knows Aix-en-Provence? You've heard of that maybe, outside of whatever, Marseille. And we stood over a graveyard. We didn't know where. Well, it was so crazy because they had me to monitor the phone. Picasso died in someplace outside of Cannes, I think in Notre Dame de Ville. But they had to move his body in the night to Vauvenargues, which was outside of Aix. But I took the whole family. We flew to Nice and in Marseille, and then we drove to Aix, to Vauvenargues. And I was put on radio duty to tell them where the body was going. With my bad French, I had to tell them. I don't know why I was, but I had to interpret the French, and they were all crying, most of them. The one who didn't cry was Maya, and Claude didn't really cry much. But anyway, we had to hide the car in the trees because they didn't want the press to see them, because they didn't want the press to know they weren't invited. They hated each other. Picasso married Jacqueline, and not Claude's mother. Claude was illegitimate, and so was Paloma. So we hid the car in the trees and looked down, and then they said, now what do we do? Now I'm telling this Picasso family what to do, which I'm very good at. So I said, well, we go down, we go into the graveyard, which is dried up, and we run our fingers through the soil, and whatever's in those soil will be his grave, most moist. Well, this is absolutely Looney Tunes, but they did it. There we are walking around the graveyard, following me. Finally, we gave up. I said, oh, well, it doesn't matter which one. Then we went into X to get, we got a cardboard from a dry cleaner that was open, and they wrote on it, to our Father whom we love and will love forever, and they all signed it. Then we said the Lord's Prayer, held hands, and Claude turned to me and said, will you be my wife? And I said, of course. So a year after that, Francois Gillot's mother bought me a wedding dress at Carl Lagerfeld. Who remembers Carl Lagerfeld? You may know the name. And then she sued the French government. Now, Francoise is not somebody to mess with, okay? So she took on Napoleon, because there's a thing called the Napoleonic Code, which says that illegitimate children cannot inherit if there were no will. And Picasso would not leave a will because he thought it would bring on his death. But Francoise didn't care about Napoleon's opinion, so she sued him. She sued the French government, and guess what? She won. She beat Napoleon. So Claude becomes a millionaire overnight. Now I'm doing plays in Bucks County as Magic Picnic, and Claude's first words when she inherited were, well, now I don't have to worry about the price of toilet paper. So I was still paying for us because he said red tape was involved in my students. So finally, now we had an apartment. We got one in New York with Calvin Klein as our neighbor on the 36th floor. We had one in Paris, and I went back to the New York apartment to whatever, who knows what. My agent calls and said, a man wants to see you for a movie, Stepford Wives. I said, well, I don't audition anymore, so I'll meet him. His name was Brian Forbes. The movie was Stepford Wives. So I met him, and he hired me without reading. And the picture is over there, Kathy, if you want to hold that one up. And does anybody know anything about the movie Stepford Wives? I know some of you have seen it. Anybody want to?
I've seen it.
What is it about?
It's about these wives in the community that are like zombies.
Why are they zombies?
They're perfect wives.
Why?
They make them perfect wives.
Why?
Because they're selfish, they're men.
What?
They're men. So they want the wives to serve them and be perfect looking.
Well, how did the wives become zombies?
Yeah, I was gonna say zombies.
How?
They were like zombies.
How?
I don't know, I forgot.
The husbands murdered them.
I saw that movie, they were like zombies.
The husbands murdered their wives because they wanted slaves. Chris, hold this one up here if you can, when you have a moment. Now, before they murdered their wives, they drew them to create the zombies, which is a drawing they had of me before they murdered me.
They groomed them.
They groomed them.
Is that what you said, groomed them?
They murdered.
They murdered them.
But before they did, they had to have a picture for the artist to make the zombie, or whatever you want to call
And
it.
they were like robots.
They were robots, yeah. And that's what I played. I was in about 6 scenes. Chris is going to start to show you some of the scenes, aren't you, Chris? That's what he's trying to do. So,
Here we go.
are you going to run it now? Is it on? Can you make it louder?
There you are.
This is it.
And when do the wives figure it out?
I'm in the middle there. I'm dead.
Yeah. You look good there.
They're asking me to come to a group consciousness raising. I say I'd rather bake. Then I say, I know I shouldn't say this, but I just love my brownies. use it as a group consciousness to elevate our conscious. It went off the mic. And my girlfriend in the group consciousness says you should try Easy Off. And I say, is it really that good? So we're dead. My girlfriend's dead. Catherine's alive. Paul Apprentice is alive.
Paul Apprentice? Is that who it was?
What?
Did you say Paul Apprentice?
She's in the movie. She was not dead yet.
Yeah.
But they kill her.
So she still had her mind.
But her murder is when the audience realizes what's going on. She's the first murder in the kitchen. Oh, this is me, and I can hear it in English leather commercial I did. I think he hired me for English leather. All my men were English leather, or they were nothing at all. I think I was hired for the movie because of, what is this one, Chris? Oh, this is Looking for Mr. Goodbar. Anybody remember that? And Diane Keaton's in this.
I didn't like Richard Gere from that moment on.
You don't like him?
I didn't like him after that. No, the party plate creeped me out.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it still there, Chris? Goodbar. And that's Tuesday Weld, who was the nicest actress I ever worked with. She said, the director told me, I want you to laugh. A big laugh. And she turned to me, what awful direction. She said, I'll help you out. Laughing is hard. When you laugh. You did it. You did it. So when she opened the door and I was supposed to laugh, she tripped. And that was my cue. She tripped and helped me to laugh. She gave me the laugh. She was really nice. She had a bad reputation for being nasty, and she wasn't at all. What is this now, Chris?
You smoking weed.
This is the Tigress. This is the one that didn't make it on the networks. I was banned at NBC and ABC, I think. Made 60 Minutes, though. Jiggling breasts.
And yet that was the era for that.
Well,
All the shows were like that, jiggle shows.
oh. You want to leave this on? Can you hear this?
No.
Well, then don't run it. You can you turn it up?
The operation. The hair would have flashed also her father.
I can't.
So there are some similarities. Well, I hear today that they do exploratory brain operations.
There you go.
Same thing. So I don't know whoever needed
Can you hear it?
to begin with, but they did say
What?
Can you hear it?
I can, but I don't think they can.
Well, I think getting lungs is a pretty good accomplishment for an alcoholic sex.
Here you're on Tony Randall.
Oh. Well, anyway, Larry King was a great man and a wonderful interviewer. This is Tony Randall. Now, this is a joke. Some people watch this and think it's true, but it's based on a true story about a woman in Philadelphia who was hit by a car, and she sued because she claimed it made her promiscuous. So they made it into a comedy on here. Tony Randall.
Good idea.
This is Charlie's Angels. Cheryl Ladd. She was very nice.
Now that was a jingle show.
Looking for a mutual friend of ours, Larry Cantrell. So am I. He didn't show up here this morning. Well, that's just it. He hasn't shown up anywhere. Glad I agreed with you? Well, one of his many, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I think you do.
What's up, Burley?
He's an original.
Your name's in pretty
A
color.
little bit worried about it. Was he okay when you saw him?
This little one says she wants to go.
He was fine. But he was fine. Drives in some dummy in a Toyota, runs into a caddy, runs traffic. Larry can't get a truck out. Then a cop came out there answering all sorts of questions.
I think you figured out I'm the waitress.
And I close every morning, 9:36.
Look at all that hair.
Yeah.
When he shows up.
Back in the day.
Farrah Fawcett here.
Farrah Fawcett hair, yeah.
Only a sign. Yesterday.
It didn't do Farrah Fawcett any good. She's still dying.
Do you want auto?
Rogers, the whole thing from
Do you want auto?
A little bit. This is Geraldo, who was very nice.
Who? Geraldo Rivera?
Yeah.
You met him?
What?
You met him?
I'm on a show here. That's me.
I can't say the man, this man's feeling. That's you? He was good looking. Somebody had egg on his face.
Yes, I crashed a wedding where I was uninvited. Alana again kindly told me not to come. Do not do this. She was a very good friend.
Nancy, do you think they're enjoying this stuff?
I think we had to wrap up, though, we're having people with staff.
All right.
Come and pick 'em up now.
All right, so we're gonna end this. So anyway, Claude ended up marrying another woman, and then I met Norman Mailer in 1983, who became a mentor, and I wrote 6 books, and then I took care of my mother from 1990 to 2000. She lived to be 100, and she became my best friend. And when I talk to you, you all remind me of the good times I had with her. They were the best times of my life. I miss her dearly. And unfortunately, my father ridiculed her a lot during our childhood because she was a farmer and she spoke Pennsylvania Dutch. She would say January instead of January, and I laughed along with them. And I was so ashamed when I got sober. Who knows AA? I had to write the 4th step, which is you write about your parents and your childhood. And I forgave my mother and realized how brave she was. And you will all bring back those memories. What?
What did you forgive her for? You said you forgave her.
Well, for making me sexually repressed, the slip stuff and all that. That's terrible. And that's about it. It turned me, it made me a little, what you say, risque. So, but I forgave her because of, I won't go into that. But then became a lecturer. I review movies now, and I have reviewed books. But I think that, well, my mic went off again. I want to close. Why is it off, Chris? Thank you. I think Nancy wants us to end.
Just to go, yeah.
I think the mic knows it's time. Mike's telling us
Mike is
something.
timing it out.
You got sexism here, Nancy.
Your
Like
time is up,
Mr.
girl.
Mike. It's quieting. I don't put up with it these days. I speak up. You may have noticed.
There you go.
Testing.
And all of you don't take it from anybody either. Like Joe Biden, he said, you know, I'm 80 and I'm wise, and you are too. Okay, now we're all going to end up singing "You Are My Sunshine." You're going to film this, right? Yeah.
Yep.
All right, are you ready? You are my sunshine, butter, my only sunshine. You make me happy when clouds are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you.
Please don't take my sunshine away.
Yay.
The other night,
Dear,
dear,
as I lay sleeping, I dreamt I held you in my forsaken, and I bent my head and cried. You are my sunshine,
My only sunshine. You make me happy when life's a rain.
you'll
Never
never
know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away.
Thank you